Morning, Glenn.
Good morning, Coach.
How you doing?
Brought you some Dunkin.
Thanks.
I've been waiting for this. I'ma make it rain tonight. 24 on the game tonight. Lake show getting paid tonight. I blame it all on the famous life. Get ready, drop the confetti.
Welcome to another edition of Coffee with Coaches, presented by Dunkin. I'm here with Director of Tennis, longtime Director of Tennis, although you still look very youthful, I must say. Longtime Director of Tennis, Glenn Marshall. How do you take your Dunkin?
I love my Dunkin. I love my Dunkin hot chocolate. It's my favorite.
Oh man, hot chocolate, huh?
Yeah,
all right,
yeah,
good.
one of my favorites.
Thought you're sweet enough. I wanted to go back. We're going to talk. You've been here a long, long time. We've both been here a long time. You're a Connecticut guy through and through. Born and raised in Glastonbury?
Right. Yeah.
Glastonbury High.
Glastonbury High, 85.
Class 85. But
Yeah.
you did, I was reading in preparation here, that you started out, I always thought you were a UConn guy from the beginning, but you started at Keene State, right?
I did.
How many years were you there?
I did 1 year at Keene State.
Okay.
I was a music major in college. Went up there, they have a very good music program.
Yeah.
And my saxophone teacher that I was taking from was an instructor there.
Oh, okay.
So I went up there, not too far from home, obviously.
Yeah.
And the trade-off was I didn't get to play tennis in college. So it was a great opportunity music-wise and, you know, what I think I wanted to do at the time. So I did a year there, had a great experience, and then actually transferred to UConn my sophomore year. Got a music scholarship here, and then started to play on the team my sophomore year. Yeah.
So you missed the game.
I missed the game tremendously.
And you came to your senses and returned to
Yeah,
UConn.
yeah. I thought I would be okay with it, but I got up there and the music was great, but you know, I'd played nationally and tennis as a junior all around, and missing it was too much.
I want to get back to the music because I've heard you play piano and you're sensational. I'm very jealous of that talent. You can take over a party and you're fantastic at it. First exposure to tennis. Did you follow any players in the 70s and 80s? I think about all those, you know, that's when I first was exposed to the game. And
yeah,
did you follow
because there
them?
were
Did you have any
unbelievable
favorites?
personalities, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had McEnroe and Borg and Connors. I mean, obviously different styles and contrasts of their personalities, which was what was neat at that time, right? Having the bad boy McEnroe and Connors was just as bad,
right,
in terms of some of the antics. Borg was one of my favorites just because he was cool, calm, collected, always
Stoic.
mentally tough, and just very, you're right, very stoic. On the court, nothing seemed to rattle him. He might have paid a price with that because he retired early at 26 or 27, but he was one of my favorites growing up.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was one of mine too. You coach a game that's popular all over the world, not just in our country, but literally all over the world. And I've noticed on your roster now, and I don't think this is the case when you first started, but as director of tennis, you have women from Sweden, from Cyprus, from Quebec, from British Columbia. You know, is the globe your recruiting territory now? I mean, truthfully?
It is. It's happened that way, and I think a lot of sports have kind of taken this path. And in tennis, it's a little bit of a necessity because in the U.S. there's probably 100 to 150 kids that are nationally ranked that would play at a mid to upper level Division I program. And a lot of those kids will go to the top 30 or 40 or 50 programs, you know, similar to other sports. Mm-hmm. So the pool of candidates has to kind of expand, and that's what it did for us maybe 8 or 9 years ago with our first international recruit. And we've been lucky with great kids and bringing in culture that fits, which is not always easy,
right.
Coming from outside the U.S.
Back to you for a second now. We mentioned your love of music. You have a bachelor's degree from the School of Fine Arts here at UConn, 1989 graduate.
Yeah.
What are I guess, well, first of all, what sparked that interest? We talked about what sparked your tennis interest, but what sparked your musical interest?
Same thing, my parents. You know, you can look at tennis, coming back to my parents, and music as well, both teachers. I was a saxophone and piano major in college. My dad played the saxophone and piano. My mom played the piano. Music was in the house. Music was, lessons were kind of expected at that time. So my brother and I both took up both instruments, and at an early age. And you know, having played and knowing the instruments really helped, because I got pretty good pretty quick, and it was important that, you know, we did music back then. And thankfully I fell in love with it. It wasn't a task that they said, hey, listen, you can't quit. continue in this path. But it sparked a love and an interest. I had some wonderful teachers, as I mentioned, not just in college, but in high school, that really propelled me to the state competitions and to get to these music scholarships that I was able to obtain. So I had some wonderful mentors along the way that kind of pushed me and kind of shaped the music side of things. And it's been a wonderful journey with it because I still play.
Yeah.
Not just at parties and fun things and weddings, but I still play in the schools where my kids grew up. I mean, my kids went to elementary school 25 years ago. They started elementary school. So they're like, oh, Mr. Marshall plays the piano. Come, play for the spring concert, the winter concert. So I did that, and then I've been playing ever since. So now I'm all these network of schools that they call me, and I volunteer and go and play. I love it. I love going into the schools.
Yeah.
I think it's important to see, a good music influence and someone who enjoys being with the kids and kind of gives back a little bit in the schools. I think it's so important.
Another
for
lifelong
us.
pursuit.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
What were some of the things? Were they mutually exclusive? Your talent with regard to music and tennis, or did you find that they benefited each other?
Well, they benefited each other for sure, because in an individual sport like tennis, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the work, your schedule, your time management, your training. It's the exact same thing with the piano or the saxophone or the music that I was playing.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of it was individual based. I had to, go over to Vondermaiden and practice in the practice rooms every night, put in the time, find a time to do it, and as well as being a D1 athlete when I was here, which was a challenging situation because back then those majors didn't
Right.
work so well together in terms of scheduling.
Sure.
We had practice every day, and performances and ensemble pieces were in the afternoons, so we had a lot of conflicts. It actually worked out. They accommodated me in many areas, but the discipline to be able to individually go and do those things are very similar.
Yeah.
Right, to train in tennis and
Sure.
the music side of things. The correlation is
Repetition.
Really repetition. Yep. And as we preach as coaches, right? Practice, practice, practice. You
Right.
don't always enjoy the practice.
Right.
Right. But it has a purpose. Everything has a purpose to an end.
Right.
And you kind of have to see that. Sometimes it's a lot of lonely nights and
Yeah.
training and playing. But the end result was definitely worth it.
Who hired you, and what was? It had to be a thrill. I mean, you were 20 what?
25.
25. Okay.
25. Yeah.
It had to be quite a thrill.
It
What
was.
was that
It
like?
was Lou and Pat Miser McNett.
Yeah.
So I played for Ben Kirtland, who was coaching hockey and
Yeah.
tennis back in the day. And at the time I got hired, I was actually down in Florida working with some players at a professional tennis company. And then Ben was kind of moving up in athletic development, and they needed a coach for the men.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I'd move down there with my wife. We just got married, and opportunity to come back to my alma mater was just too much to pass up. Got settled in as a part-time men's tennis coach in '92.
Okay.
And in that stretch from '92 to '97, where I took over as the director and coached both the men's and women's, I took over the women in '97. So from '92 to '97, I did many different jobs here.
Yeah.
I worked in development. I got my master's in sport management under the development office. I was the marketing director at the Alumni Association. It's just, piecing it together. I was a part-time coach, and I was loving it. But, I was married and had to find my way to make an income.
Pay the bill.
So I did all kinds of jobs, learned a lot about the university, met a lot of great people, donors, alums, really entranced myself in the whole process of the development and meeting people,
Yep.
and loved that. And, if I wasn't coaching, I think I'd be in development or fundraising.
Okay.
I just enjoyed that very much.
Yeah. Well, you're good at it too.
Yeah, so '97, they decided to join the positions, made
Mm-hmm.
me director, and I coached both from that point on.
Right.
'97.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
How about starting out in your mid-20s? You're starting out as a peer, I guess not a peer, but a friend. You're close in age. I know for me, when I was an assistant coach, there were some challenges. I'd put up artificial barriers and dress a certain way and try to distance myself a little bit from guys that I may have played with. Did you find that at all challenging?
I did, yeah, those first couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, having been a player and teaching tennis,
Right.
but to be a coach and be all those responsibilities about, like you said, the separation of all those things that are important that you have to do as a coach. At 25, that was difficult. My seniors were 21, 22. They had a way of doing things when I got there.
Yeah.
Times were a little bit different back then in terms of, where we traveled, what we did. It was more regional and local. You had to learn quickly, to set yourself aside and say, listen, you're in a coach's role now. This is completely different. You have to act the part, look the part, and be the
Right.
part all the time.
All the time.
Right, because one little slip up and and they'll remember it forever, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was a challenging time at 25.
Yeah.
It was a great opportunity that kind of leapfrogged me into the position of the director in '97.
Yeah.
So I was able to navigate it. There were some challenges, but everyone goes through that at that age.
You've coached both men and women. Now you just coach women.
Right.
I've got to ask, what are the differences? What are the similarities?
Yeah. The men are very direct and very blunt and their memories are quick and short, and you kind of hit target things that you want to get accomplished, and it's short and sweet. Women is more communication, explanation, things that we want to get accomplished, working together. The whole holistic approach is a little bit different. The kids they're super respectful. Like I said, their culture is good. They come from great families.
Right.
That's really important to me. That's the kind of atmosphere we're promoting. From that regard, the women just have been, they listen, they respect. The men were great, but it's a little bit different. The coaching.
More of an
styles and
art
technique.
than a science, probably.
It is definitely more of an art. That's a good analogy.
All right, so I think I may know the answer, having come from two teachers myself, and it's obvious that your parents had a huge influence on your life so far and throughout your life. But if you didn't become a coach, what would your profession be?
I would be a music teacher, for sure.
I did know that.
I was a performance music major in college, but that was my mentors in high school and college were teachers. They were impactful and made a big impression on my life, and I wanted to give that back.
Okay, that'll do it. Another episode of Coffee with Coaches presented by Dunkin. We'll see you next time.